Hey travelers, Mag and I here on day 254 of our trip around the United States. We are kicking things off for our first day back in Oklahoma, here at the highest point in the Black Mesa State Park and Nature Preserve at 4,973 feet. Ironically, which is still lower than anywhere we were in New Mexico yesterday. But still, we made it here and we are starting off our trip back through the state on a high point. The hike to get out here from the trailhead is 4.2 miles one way with a 600-foot elevation gain. And Aichan managed to hike that whole thing on her 4 paws. The estimate is that it takes 4 hours to do this trail round trip, which is about right. It took us 2 hours to ascend up here. But I think Aichan and I doing double time can cut an hour off of that on the way back to the car. I'm really looking forward to regaining that time because my clocks are all messed up here. Not only did we come back into Central Standard Time crossing out of New Mexico, but we also just had daylight savings, which means we woke up this morning, blinked, and lost 2 hours, just like that. Now, as Mom pointed out to me, there's silver linings to everything, and that means that we're gonna have an hour later till sunset. But I still feel like we're behind schedule, and the best way to gain back a little bit of that time is to double time it all the way back down that trail. Once we get down to the bottom of the trail, we have 210 miles to cover today. We only have 210 miles to cover because this hike represents fully half of our day. Once we begin on the road, we're going to move up to the extreme northwest corner of Oklahoma and then turn around and head east. We're going to be making our way in through a dip just for a little bit into Kansas again, and we'll be covering 3 pages in Oklahoma. We'll bring our day to an end in Hooker. Now what time that happens? I don't know. My clock is all messed up here. But I know no matter how today goes, we're going to end things in Hooker. That's the goal, and we're going to make it happen. But for now, let's go ahead and run back down that trail, give you a little tour of the highest point in the state, and then move on with our miles. Come on, let's go.
We begin our day back in the state of Oklahoma once again. This time, hiking out to the highest point at the Black Mesa Nature Preserve. It is a 4.2 mile trail one way from parking to get to the top. This is the kind of hike where you're going to want to take extra time to prepare at the hiking area to ensure that you have everything you need, including lots of water, as even at this time of year, it's fairly hot out here. Each time you make it to a mile marker, you'll find a shaded area with some information, a bench to sit down and enjoy the view, and usually something interesting within sight. These help to keep you motivated.
As Aichan and I continue to hike up on what is mostly a flat trail, I keep looking up above us, expecting that at some point we're gonna have to go from down here to up there. That might be the point where Aichan says, enough is enough, I'm not doing it. As we'll see, looks like it's gonna happen shortly after mile marker 2 based on the satellite images.
I was quite surprised that for this being a 4.2 mile trail, we were able to cover more than 2 miles without ever really gaining any elevation. I believe this made the trail much more palatable for Aichan, as she could just look ahead and continue to march forward without having to worry about climbing up. Well, at least for now. The rest area along mile marker 2 of this trail, just shy of the halfway point, is my favorite spot because it is the only place on the Black Mesa Trail that you can find a physical cache.
Our first find of the day. Sure is nice to have something along this trail to break things up. Yeah!
Just shortly after mile marker 2, the trail makes a sharp turn and immediately steepens out. This set of rocky switchbacks is where you really have to grit your teeth on the trail, making a climb of almost 600 feet over the course of the next mile. This was the first time along the trail that Aichan expressed any hesitance, but she continued to trudge up behind me anyway. Despite the elevation gain, if you take it at a nice, easy pace, you can appreciate the views all along the way for this entire mile-long stretch of the trail, which is exactly what we did. That is, we appreciated the views on foot as we continued moving, because Aichan was not about to sit down at the mile marker 3 bench. If we had, that's most likely the point at which we would have to turn around. Upon reaching the top of the mesa, you will pass under a barbed wire fence, and once again, the conditions will flatten out. Having reached the top of the mesa, it felt like no time at all until we had the marker in front of us for the highest point in the state. Finally, only here at our destination will we sit our butts onto one of these benches to stop and rest for a moment. If you know us at all by now, then you know that did not last long at all. We were up and moving within just a few minutes' time. While the only listing up here to mark the high point is a virtual, there is still an ammo can with a logbook inside of it that you can sign once you reach the top, which of course we did.
If I didn't know any better, I would swear to you that this is a geocache. It certainly feels like it with us signing the logbook and everything.
I brought the hiking backpack with me, specifically so that Ai-chan would not have to walk the entire 4.2-mile return trip to the car. But she refused to take the easy way out and instead did the entire thing on her own 4 paws. That burned every bit of energy she had, because by the time we reached the tri-point corner of Colorado, New Mexico, and Oklahoma, she was passed out hard.
State corner number 1 of 2 for the day. This is where the corners of Colorado, New Mexico, and Oklahoma come together.
Now that we are starting at the extreme northwest corner of Oklahoma, it is time to begin making our way east across these pages in the Panhandle, making at least 1 or 2 finds in each page as we go. There is not an overabundance of geocaches in this part of the Panhandle of Oklahoma, but there are at least 2 or 3 options available per county and per page, most of which being located right along the edge of cemeteries or at rest areas along the highway. As we always prefer, the geocaches offered us quite a bit of variety, moving from nanos, pill bottles and film cans, hangers and trees, to things a little bit larger located at the base of fence posts or tree stumps. In our hunt through the local cemeteries, we were even lucky enough to come up with an ammo can in a spot where most people might hide a micro or a small instead. A day out geocaching is never really quite the same without being able to pop the top on an ammo can and sort through all the swag inside. It's good to see that there's an abundance of knickknacks available in this hide for future finders.
I've offered Ai-chan a chance to get out at pretty much every ground zero since we finished our hike out to Oklahoma's oldest point. Each time she gives me the same exact look. Coming. You wanna go out? You wanna come? You wanna come with me? Yep, she is done for the day. That is it.
All of the towns located in this part of the Oklahoma Panhandle are small, very small. And there is no more obvious indicator of this than when we came into Boise City, the county seat of Cimarron County, with a population of just over 1,000 people. The county courthouse here sits directly in the middle of town, in a traffic circle right in the middle of Main Street, and yet we saw not another person the whole time we were here. Even before we hop out of Oklahoma into Kansas, the state already begins to take on much of the same look, with fields and flat land as far as you can see. By the time we reached the state corner, everything had such a uniform look that I could no longer tell where Oklahoma stopped and Kansas started, save for the marker telling me so.
This makes county corner number 2 of 2 for the day. We are now at the intersection of Kansas, Oklahoma, and Colorado. And really, we could have made this 3 for 3 for the day, visiting the corner of Texas, Oklahoma, and New Mexico. But Skeletor 10 and I already did that on our trip through Texas, so there really wasn't much need to go out there. Now we have a couple of pages to knock out in this little corner of Kansas, and then we are moving on to finish our night in Hooker. Looks like we're actually running at a pretty decent time. Let's see if we can keep up this pace.
Since we were already this far into the corner of Kansas, we decided to stop off for a couple of finds in the counties and pages, starting with the Morton County Historical Society Museum in Elkhart. While it was closed today, that did not stop us from enjoying the Veterans Memorial, located right out front, the first that we have seen for the day. Had the doors been open though, this is exactly the kind of place we would like to explore further. It takes you through the history of Morton County, from the time of Native Americans to pioneer life, farming, ranching, business, and the Santa Fe Trail. Oh well, that is a really great thing about geocaching, I suppose. Even on a weekend or holiday when most other things are closed, you can still get out there and make a few finds. And in no time at all, we waved goodbye to Kansas as we made our way once again into Oklahoma to close out our day. Sometimes it's hard to believe just how much we can get done between sunup and sundown.
And there it is. In spite of the time change from Mountain Standard to Central, and in spite of the time change into Daylight Savings Time, we still somehow managed to finish before the sun finished setting today. I'm quite surprised, but very pleasantly surprised at this turnout. We began our morning in the northwest corner of Oklahoma at the very highest point in the state, an 8.4 mile hike that completely exhausted Aichun. From there, we began to make our way east across the counties and pages in the western section of Oklahoma. Since we were already out here, we visited 2 of the state corners, hitting on Kansas, Colorado, and New Mexico along the way, and popped up to do a few counties and pages in Kansas as well. We're bringing our day to an end here in Hooker with the sun setting down just below the horizon and ready to catch a little sleep and begin to do the same thing tomorrow as we continue to trek east across Oklahoma. Thank you guys for joining us today on this adventure to the high point in the state and making our way eastward. Like this video, subscribe to stay tuned for daily updates, and we'll see you out on the trails.